And the second hand has reached the top of the hour, so we're going to get started and people will join us as they will coming in. And I am very happy to introduce Beth Jacobs. And she has, it's from what I've read, we have a wonderful program here, and it is going to be a great opportunity for university licensees to get on board. And Beth and her team are going to tell us about their digital transformation program. So Beth, you take it.
Thank you, Virginia. I'm going to ask Quentin maybe from Poynter to share his screen so we can get started. And then we will go from there. Excellent. So Virginia, do you want to wait a couple more minutes or do you want to start us to start? It's up to you. Oh, you're on mute.
This is radio, and if we wait, it just makes people arrive later. So
no problem. I'm happy to get started. I'm happy to get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Beth Jacobs, and I'm the VP of Digital Strategy and Innovation at CPB. And I'm responsible for developing the strategies and overseeing CPB's investment portfolio in large-scale digital programs, technologies, and innovation solutions to accelerate digital transformation across the system. And I work in partnership with the national organizations, with stations, public media organizations, and content programmers. I'm really excited to be here today with this group, and thank you to Virginia for inviting us. I'm here today with Quentin Hope, who's a senior consultant from the Poynter Institute, who will be sharing more details of a new free program that CPB is funding to scale our support for more public media station leaders and their stations to advance their digital transformation efforts. So a couple of things of note, we are recording this and we are also going to be distributing this deck to Virginia to distribute to you afterwards. So no need to take copious notes. We will have all this information to share with you at the end. Also, with us from CPB today is Lainey Tompkins. She's our project manager. And then Jackie Gales Webb is in the house. Also, I'm excited to see who is our VP of radio at CPB. And I'm sure you know Jackie really well. In terms of a little bit of housekeeping, Emily is here from Poynter. We are going to ask that you, if you have any questions, you drop them in the chat. And then at the end, Emily will go through, we'll pull out your questions and address them. And we'll also kind of do an open mic and open it up for anybody who has questions as well. So with that, during the past 18 months, I've spoken with many GMs around the system and learned how many of you have been managing through this unprecedented time. The impact from both the pandemic and societal events led stations to pivot overnight, to leverage their digital channels, to dynamically create and distribute critical and relevant news, information, and content for your audiences. The heavy reliance on digital platforms for content distribution and audience engagement created a heightened sense of urgency to adopt new strategies and processes to optimize your internal business operations and to connect with your communities. For many, this was the start of instilling a new culture and new ways of working at your station, or in other words, it was the beginning of your digital transformation. Stations also experienced significant digital audience growth during the pandemic and have since realized the importance of being agile and resilient to meet the dynamic needs and expectations of their audiences in more personalized ways. And while the initial audience growth spikes of 2020 have subsided, the content consumption habits of audiences on digital platforms continues to outpace that of linear channels. This creates an imperative for public media leaders to rethink their station's core strategies and operations in a digital-first, audience-centric world. To build new and innovative digital products, content, and user experiences that attract, acquire, and retain new and diverse users, deepen engagement with those users, and increase loyalty and membership. So recognizing this imperative to achieve growth and impact in a digital world, CPB is now increasing our support for public media stations and its leaders by launching an additional free digital transformation program. This new program will provide the tools, the framework, and the leadership coaching to many more CEOs and GMs and their teams to build upon the digital dexterity that began during the pandemic and continues today in order to strengthen the long-term value proposition of your local station within your local community. Next slide, please. So it's important to understand the dynamics at play today in the digital media landscape, which continues to undergo rapid and disruptive change. The effects of the pandemic, coupled with growing consumption habits from millennials and Gen Zers, created massive demand for new streaming media offerings on new platforms. There's over 300 platforms today that exist in terms of streaming media. And today, the average user subscribes to 4.4 streaming on-demand services. This has resulted also in a flurry of mergers from big media and tech companies. So for example, Amazon looking to acquire MGM and Discovery acquiring Warner Media. These behemoths are competing to reach audiences at scale by controlling content and distribution, as well as leveraging their data and technology to provide personalized content experiences. The trove of streaming content has created ubiquitous, always-on access to content and has changed audience consumption habits and expectations. Audiences expect high-quality content on the platforms where they are, delivered in the right format and personalized based on their interests and preferences, anytime, anywhere, and on any device. As audiences gravitate to more digital platforms to consume video and audio content, public media stations need to meet them where they are. This means evolving your organizational culture, business, and operations to build digital products that distribute educational, informational, and culturally relevant local content beyond traditional broadcast and audio channels to digital and streaming audio and video platforms. Also things like smart speakers and even on experimental new immersive platforms like augmented reality. So next slide, please. So from a macro level industry perspective, digital audiences have been growing year over year over the past 3 years. So I pulled this chart from eMarketer from April of 2021, so this year, as it illustrates that the inflection point has already occurred back actually in 2018, whereby the average time spent by adult audiences, this is 18 years or older, on digital media as a percentage of total time spent has eclipsed traditional media. Traditional media is defined as radio, TV, magazines, and newspapers. So in 2018, it eclipsed traditional media by 52%. And this, as you can see, is projected to steadily increase over the next 2 years to 64%. So bringing it home relative to public media, while I don't have this graphic to share with you, the most recent audience data from NPR also illustrates how the pandemic specifically has accelerated the long-term transitional shift of audience consumption habits from broadcast to digital at the national level. NPR anticipates that its total combined digital audience, and this is from podcasts, NPR.org, mobile apps, NPR programming on station live streams, smart speakers like Amazon Alexa, and NPR Music on YouTube. So all of that combined digital audience, NPR anticipates now will be permanently larger than its broadcast reach. And specifically notable audience growth that NPR has seen by platform includes weekly NPR.org users are up 20% from the spring of 2019 to the spring of 2021. NPR One users are up 74%, and that's largely thanks to expanded NPR One listening on Alexa. And YouTube NPR Music viewers are up 177%. So we're seeing the same thing at the national level on NPR, and many of you may also be seeing it at recognizing it and seeing this data at your stations as well. Next slide, please. So fundamentally, digital transformation is a process of maturity over time. It doesn't just happen in 1 year. It takes time to develop and execute digital growth strategies and master best practices so that it becomes embedded into the core DNA of an organization. And there's several factors that lead to digital transformation success, and they're illustrated here in this wheel. And they include things like people, leadership, and culture, execution in terms of processes and decision-making, and technology and data. So for the past few years, CPB has made specific strategic investments in these areas by funding professional development programs for public media leaders and their station personnel to help build digital strategies and amplify core capabilities. And these include programs which you may be familiar with, such as the Digital Culture Accelerator, the PBS Digital Immersion Program, as well as in scalable digital technology infrastructure, such as Grove, which is the enterprise content management system for public media, which many of you may have migrated to or are about to be migrating to, and a single sign-on service. And these are all designed to reach, grow, and engage new and existing audiences. So this year, as the pandemic caused many more stations to prioritize their digital transformation efforts, CPB launched a new phase of our Digital Culture Accelerator program delivered by Q Catalyst, which is another partner of ours, to continue the progress made by those incumbent 23 stations. And now to make digital transformation coaching and resources available to even more station leaders, such as yourselves, and their organizations, we are now engaging with the Poynter Institute to develop and deliver a new, free, customized digital transformation program that can accommodate 75 public media general managers and their station personnel. Next slide, please. So real quickly, since 2018, the DCA program has helped over 24 GMs and their stations develop a digital mindset. And this has included developing new long-term strategies and goals, adopting new agile ways of working and tools and best practices across digital channels to help increase audience reach, deepen engagement, and drive growth in membership and revenue. The effects of the pandemic allowed us and Q Catalyst, our partner in that program, the opportunity to fine-tune this program a little bit more. And so we launched a new 2-year phase 2 of this program this year with a hyper focus on mastering fundamentals and best practices in core digital areas. So for example, this has included more intensive sort of deep dive project work in digital audience development areas such as email marketing and social media marketing that also help stations attract and retain audiences and convert casual unknown digital users to known members and donors. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, to help more stations prioritize their efforts, we're now partnering with the Poynter Institute to develop and deliver a new customized digital transformation program to really help inform and assist and coach 75 public media GMs and their personnel on the best strategies, tools, and the processes to transform their organization's culture and digital operations. This program is really designed to meet stations where they are in their specific digital transformation process and at their specific digital development or digital maturity level. So fundamentally at its core, this program is designed to cover both the what and the how of digital transformation. It's centered on achieving key goals through a digital performance challenge, which is a project that is going to have measurable, quantifiable outcomes. And it's focused on achieving audience and revenue growth. So actual business outcomes for your organization. And lastly, it's really designed to provide the CEO with the digital leadership development in the context of doing. So now I'm going to hand the baton off to Quentin, who's going to walk you through more details of the program and its benefits.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Virginia, and thank each of you who've taken time today. And I'm thinking especially of those of you who may be right in the midst of your fall membership campaigns. So we do appreciate your time and interest. By way of background in this program, in working with CPB to develop it, we've drawn on 4 strands of experience that we've had in designing and conducting such programs. The first are the table stakes programs for digital transformation of news organizations, which you may have heard of, which collectively have spanned commercial and public media, print and broadcast legacy organizations, as well as pure digital startups, and in markets ranging from the very top metro down to very small towns and rural areas. Also, the Facebook Accelerator programs focused on particular topics for digital audience development and consumer revenue growth or individual revenue growth with news organizations. And then there's the Poynter Institute's own deep expertise in offering leadership programs for media organizations in particular, and at all levels of leadership, from first-time managers through to CEOs. The fourth strand is come to the Maynard Institute and their 40 years of driving diversity, equity, and inclusion in journalism organizations. We've worked closely with them to embed their perspectives and tools into the digital transformation programs above. And I should mention that while this work is focused primarily in the areas of news and information content, it has widened into other types of content as well. And we've designed this program to encompass and address all types of public media production, not just news and information. And in saying we, there are three of us who've been working closely together to develop the program. Will be involved directly in its delivery: Cheryl Carpenter, Tim Griggs, and myself. Our work is intertwined in various ways over the years in terms of running programs together, and we look forward to working together as a team again with those of you who may participate in this program. And rather than go into detail on our backgrounds, I'll just mention that there is one thing that each of us has learned for certain in working with a wide range of organizations on digital transformation. And that is simply that we know it's not easy. We know it's not just a matter of forming a digital vision or having a solid digital strategy or following a set of best practices. It does require, as Beth was mentioning, fundamental changes in mindsets, behaviors, and ways of working together. And it can be daunting in knowing just where to get started, or more likely, once you're started, wondering whether all the investment and activity that's underway is going to amount to anything. We hope that this program can provide you with a pathway, along with some useful processes and tools for making that digital journey, wherever you happen to be along the path at the present time. To give an overview of the program and what it involves, we'll spend the next several minutes covering three topics. First of all, what we see is the lasting benefits of the program in three areas of strategy, performance achievement, and organization development. From there, we'll take a look at the high-level structure, timelines, and needed commitments of the program so you have a better sense of just exactly what's involved and what you'd be signing up for. And then at the end, just before we take time for questions, we will go into the application process. I'll turn it back to Beth. She can go through the details of that, as well as the deadlines that are coming up. So in terms of going over the benefits, let me start with the strategic framework used throughout the program, which is table stakes. It's a term that comes from poker and refers simply to having the basic requirements, the minimums, to really be in the game. And in this case, it's the game of producing digital content that does attract a significant audience and revenue. Think of them as sort of the high level what of the program that Beth mentioned. I'll share a very, very headline view of the table stakes as they've been defined, developed, tested, and refined over the last 6 years here. The first three really are all about audience focus, defining who your audiences are and what audience needs and interests are being met by every piece of content you produce. Then being on the platforms used by the audiences that you're targeting, and publishing your content based upon their habits and schedules, not your own. The second two are about using the concept of the audience funnel as a common framework for developing digital audiences revenue. That idea of at the very top of the funnel is just plain awareness that that your digital content is out there, to first-time visitor, to moving down through the funnel with repeat visits, then frequent and habitual visiting, then a loyalty and a willingness to pay, and then remaining loyal and being willing to pay again. And using the funnel as a way of aligning and prioritizing all your digital work, and most importantly, really as an effective organizational tool for showing how everyone in the organization has a role in working the funnel and bringing audiences along. The remaining two table stakes are more organizational in nature. First is forming and managing partnerships to increase your audience reach and engagement, and particularly local partnerships, particularly when it comes to developing new, more diverse audiences, where others may have the audience relationships that you don't have, and can therefore be very valuable in terms of your audience building. And lastly, building real ownership of digital growth among individuals and teams across your organization, whether it be ownership of particular audiences, platforms, or products, so that you provide inclusive opportunities for staff, tap their full talents, and not be the only one on whose shoulders digital transformation is resting. Behind each of these few words on each of the table stakes, there is a set of strategies for realizing them. And under each of those strategies, in turn, a further set of tactics or practices for putting the concepts into action. And I should note that while these table stakes have been used in a wide range of media organizations, for this program, they are being adapted and refined for public media organizations in particular. Now, the other kind of what of the program is using the table stakes to then select a digital performance challenge and declaring it in the form of a written statement, and then realizing the challenge becomes the focus of the program. Such a challenge statement has three parts. The first is a concise description of just what will be done, including the digital audience or revenue gain you aim to achieve, how you anticipate that your organization will need to change to achieve it, and who will benefit from achieving the challenge, to what end. And then the second is a very sharp definition of success as defined by specific, relevant, measurable, quantitative goals that will require some real organizational stretch to achieve. So not your regular run rate, but a real step function increase. The third is an articulation of the strategies and tactics you will employ to achieve the challenge. And here's where you start to get into more particulars of it may be workflow redesign, skill development, development and use of audience data, and new tool development. The value of the challenge statement is in thinking through and then actually writing it down so that you have a North Star throughout the program that is about actual digital audience and revenue performance gains, rather than just going through the digital activities of the program and the training that may or may not lead anywhere without a clear North Star that you're working towards. Another aspect of the how of the program is how we approach achieving your performance challenge. And this is through design do loops. Think of them as short sprints of 2 to 4 weeks, think agile, that are driven by the use of audience data. And to keep these design do loops focused on performance outcomes rather than just activities, we emphasize 4 key elements. The first is simply setting baselines, knowing your starting point, and defining very clearly the wins that you hope to achieve in this particular loop and what larger wins the loop is aiming to achieve. Then creating and using a simple scorecard to track progress against those goals. Then focusing on actually achieving the wins that you're targeting versus just checking off activities. And here's where the coaching support of the program really comes into play in terms of pushing you in this regard. And then, as you might expect in a loop like this, towards the end of each loop, deliberately considering what worked, what didn't, and what learning you can carry forward in designing the next loop. And through the repetition of these cycles, you both advance achievement of your challenge and establish a new action-oriented, quick cycle, performance-focused way of working that can become a core organizational discipline and capability as you continue your digital journey, or perhaps in other aspects of your organization as well. Another really essential part of the how of the program, and one of the benefits we've designed it to deliver, is using change management concepts and tools to bring people along. At the start of your performance challenge, or for that matter, any new initiative that you may have started, you're well aware that there's sort of a distribution of people in terms of where they stand in regard to the effort at the beginning. Some are already there and with you, others are known resistors, and in between are likely to be a good many who may be reluctant for various reasons, or maybe willing but just uncertain about just what to do. What does this mean for me in my job? I just don't see exactly what needs to be done. And at the start of an initiative, that distribution as shown here is very likely to be skewed to the negative. Recognizing this, the program focuses very much on bringing people along and shifting that distribution to the favorable side across the course of the program. And for this, we introduce a variety of change management approaches and tools, including some listed here. For example, from to statements to help people envision the needed change in very tangible ways, from doing business this way to doing business that way, consciously mapping who needs to be involved and in what particular ways, understanding the underlying reasons of resistance or reluctance, and working with them and addressing them to shift individuals' positions. And then really importantly is both celebrating and using wins, like the wins we referred to in the design do loops, to show the way, particularly for those who are willing but uncertain, and to build a sense of momentum as you go forward. So it's not just all design, plan, but by doing in each of those cycles, you're really developing a sense of momentum. As mentioned at the start, we've been working closely with the Maynard Institute to fully incorporate DEI and belonging into the development of digital transformation programs. A really core element of this is their teaching and exploring the fault lines framework that they use as a way of looking across the lines of race, class, gender, generation, geography, and sexual orientation to understand, first of all, how these lines shape how the world is seen by different audiences, then to think about how content is produced by media organizations and how these fault lines affect it, and then how that content is perceived by different audiences. The fault lines and others of their perspectives and approaches have been embedded in both the table stakes themselves, as well as the change management tools of the program. And they're really intended to focus in two different directions. One is internally in regard to how pursuit of your performance challenge can further DEI within your organization, and then externally in regard to bringing the fault lines and other DEI perspectives into the work of developing new and more diverse audiences. An added dimension of this program in particular, which we've not had in other programs, and I think it is a really important fundamental addition, is a distinct leadership development track. Now, the activities of this track may look familiar for any of you who've been through any sort of leadership development program. There's a 3-day workshop, one-on-one leadership coaching, and a CEO peer group learning and sharing sessions. What's distinctive here is that this track is focused on leadership skills and areas that are core to digital transformation and really developing a digitally capable organization, including those shown here. For example, very importantly, the development, getting really good at the development and management of cross-functional teams. Also listed here is leading through conflict, which is really going back to understanding the sources and the underlying reasons driving those who are resistant and reluctant. And I think these are particularly relevant for public media as legacy organizations, where there's a lot of legacy overhang, if you will. Broadcast mindsets prevail, programs are often the central focus, functions may have become siloed over time, and the urgency of digital just isn't really fully felt yet. And for this track, we'll be drawing on Pointer's decades of experience in leadership development, specifically for media organizations. And as I mentioned, at all levels of leadership, from first-time managers to CEOs. So the last point I'll make about the intended benefits of the program are its ongoing benefits. The program isn't intended to be a one and done. As you know, the journey of digital is really a series, the digital journey is really a series of journeys taken. You set out, you arrive at a point, you plot out where you want to be next, and then you start off on the next round of the journey. Knowing this, the program is designed to better equip you and your organization for the next journey and to help that next journey hopefully go smoother and faster. So within the program itself, it's really designed to organizationally embed a common digital language, particularly around the funnel, an audience first mindset to permeate the organization, really learning and starting to use on a regular basis a shared set of performance and change tools, and then just providing a structured process for executing major initiatives. And then to emphasize this, in the ending sessions of the program, what we actually do is we go back to the beginning of the program and review the challenge shaping process, the performance focused tools, the change management tools, so that you are then set and actually, excuse me, define what will be your next set of performance challenges, whether it's one challenge or multiple challenges. So it really is learning a cycle by which you can continue on your digital journey. I'll shift now to talking a little bit about the program and how it's structured and organized. To make the program a better experience for participants and just to make it manageable, it will be divided into 4 cohorts. And the 4 cohorts will each be have similar characteristics, particularly along the dimension of sort of current state of digital development. So think of it, if we're talking about a journey, where you are on the journey. And as Beth mentioned, the program is really designed for to cover that spectrum from just really getting serious, just starting to get really serious about it, to really being quite a ways down the road and really looking for kind of the next level of digital growth and performance, which is why we've divided the program into 4 cohorts. Now, within each of these cohorts, there'll be up to 20 CEOs and stations. Then each cohort will be divided into 4 peer groups, as shown here. And the peer group will have up to 5 stations within it and have a dedicated coach who will work both individually with each station team, the CEO and their team. And then also we'll work with the group collectively, particularly in terms of peer group update sessions where you get together with your peer group, update on the progress you've made on your challenge, share learnings, sharing what works, what doesn't, and what you may have developed that may be of use to others. And then at the most granular level and most essentially are the individual teams. So each station team would consist of 4 to 6 members, including the CEO, GM, or whoever the title is of the head of the organization. So in terms of, for each of those cohorts, the program is 9 months in 2 phases. There is an initial immersion phase. And during this phase, we really get into the grounding and the table stakes and the fault lines, selecting the performance challenge, getting it well-defined, thinking about the people planning aspect of it, and starting to target some early wins. From there, we go into the challenge pursuit phase, which is just as it says, focusing on achieving the actual performance challenge, getting more people engaged, shifting that curve of supporters, as I mentioned earlier, and then having those update sessions with your peer group and sharing learnings. So hand in hand with this, with these 2 phases are an immersion phase for the CEO leadership development track. Again, the immersion phase being really focused on getting grounded in the particular digital leadership skills and organizational capabilities that are needed. And then in the challenge pursuit phase, really because you'll be in the midst of doing a performance challenge, learning and developing those skills, particularly developing those skills by doing. And one other thing to point out, which I don't think we've mentioned at all up to now, is that the entire program is designed to be delivered virtually. Part of this is to make sure that everyone has access to it, and so that travel and time taken with travel is not an impediment to any station participating. And I should also mention that obviously everyone's learned to do things virtually over the last couple of years. Our experience goes back to about 2016 in terms of developing programs that are largely, if not entirely, delivered virtually. So we're very attuned to what's necessary to make this kind of program work if delivered virtually. The other thing I want to talk about is that in terms of the nature of the program and the structure of the program is that we do consider this to be a high opportunity program, but also a high commitment program. And with this in mind, we thought it would be good to estimate the time required for each phase of the program and share that with you. So for the CEO and the team, the immersion phase is the most intensive, with about 15 to 20 hours a month for participation in direct program activities. And that's not including the time working as a team outside of the program sessions in actual pursuit of the challenge, the actual work of that. And then during the challenge pursuit phase, about 12 hours a month of direct program activities, again, not counting the time or the work done on pursuing the challenge itself. Then for the CEO leadership development track, there's about another 8 hours a month for that track during the immersion phase, and then about 2 hours a month during the challenge pursuit phase. And so from a CEO or GM perspective, the estimated hours during the immersion phase combined to be about 23 to 28, if you just add the column, and then about 14 hours a month during the challenge pursuit phase. Going back to the notion of the 4 cohorts, each of the cohorts, which will be going through the 9-month program, will be phased with the new cohort starting each quarter with start dates in late January, late April, late July, and late October. And again, this approach is designed to provide a smaller program experience for participants and ensure that we have the needed capacity to support the program on our part. And just to finish this overview, I'll just recap the benefits I've covered that the program is designed to provide, and we hope you'll realize if you participate. For strategy, gaining a guiding strategic framework for digital transformation that you continue far beyond the program. For performance, achieving actual performance results through your performance challenge, and more fundamentally, establishing more of an organizational performance discipline. And for your organization's overall development, employing change management tools, infusing DEI into digital transformation, developing digital leadership skills, and learning a replicable process. And with that, I'll turn it back to Beth to talk about the application process and the upcoming deadlines.
Thank you, Quentin. Okay, so like I said, I know it's a lot to digest, but we will be sharing this presentation with Virginia afterwards. So you guys can go back and think through it. before you decide to apply. So some of the deadlines coming up, we have been in an open enrollment phase since September 13th. So that goes on for one more week. So the application closing date is October 15th. A couple of things to note before you apply. The link is here to apply, and when we send you the deck, there's a hot link so you can click right over to it. But a couple of things of note. As similar to our Digital Culture Accelerator program, we are asking that those stations, those GMs that are chosen to participate in the program sign a commitment letter. And the commitment letter is really just an acknowledgement that you will make this program a strategic priority for the 9-month duration of the program, and that both you and your team understand the commitments in terms of time and otherwise to the program. So it's really just an acknowledgement of your and your team's commitment to the program. Part of that commitment letter also, again, similar to the DCA program, asks for sort of endorsement from your, normally it would be your board chair, but in the instance of, university licensees, it would be the entity, sort of governing entity to whom you report. And this is really nothing more than just an acknowledgement of their support and their endorsement of your participation in this program. So we ask that that person also sign this letter. When you apply to this program, again, you do not need to sign the commitment letter. You will only be asked to sign the commitment letter once you are chosen to participate in the program. But we ask that before you apply, you actually just review it so you're familiarized yourself with what we're going to be asking you to sign. And in terms of the application, it's an online form. It takes about 30 minutes to complete. It's a combination of closed-ended questions where you just kind of tick the box, and a few open-ended questions where we ask for, I think it's like 100 characters or less, to just better understand where, what your digital challenges are, why you're interested in being in the program, et cetera, et cetera. And again, as kind of a bonus round, in the presentation we will send Virginia to distribute to you, we will have an appendix where we will have the application questions for you to just take a look at and start to think about before you actually go online and apply with the form. As I mentioned, the closing date is next Friday. So I'd really encourage you, if you are interested, please take a look at the application. Please let us know if you have any questions, but please do go ahead and fill out the application form in the next week if you can, if you're interested. After the deadline closes, we'll look at all the applications. We will notify GMs who are selected to participate in this free program by November 8th. And then shortly thereafter, we will ask you to sign that commitment letter and return it to Pointer before the holidays around November 22nd. And then after that, Pointer will go back and look and try to organize sort of those cohorts based on some of that sort of digital criteria in terms of where different stations are at their digital development, size of station, type of station, and try to match up all the applicants sort of accordingly to the best of their ability. I will tell you that in the application form, you do have the option to denote your preference for which cohort you'd like to participate in. Again, there will be 4, and we will try to accommodate as best we can based on in totality the amount of applications that we get and who matches up well with whom. And then the plan is we would notify folks of which cohort they're in by early December. And then the first cohort kickoff is January 24th. I am available to answer any questions that you may have on the program. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And any questions that you have on and if I can't answer them, I'll definitely keep them over to Quentin. Any questions you have on the application form as you go through it, Ryan Janot is available to answer those questions. His email is also in the application form if you run into any issues while you're filling that out. So with that said, I will turn it back to, I guess, to Emily to see if there are any questions in the actual chat, and then we'll just open it up. We have a pretty small group today. We can just open it up and see if there's any live questions to answer for from this group.
Yeah, I can tell Steve has kind of a perfect question for Quentin here, which is, how's this program going to be different than the Table Stakes Local News Innovation Program? Can you address that, Quentin?
Yeah, although it draws upon many of the same tools and approaches and methodology of the table stakes program, there are some distinct components. First and foremost, all the table stakes programs to date, or the existing Poynter table stakes program, is sort of mixed media. This program is entirely focused on public media organizations, and as I mentioned, extends beyond just news and information content. The other is the leadership development component, which is a clear addition to this program, and we think an important one, and one which has probably been missing from the other programs. The further and deeper involvement of the Maynard Institute on the DEI side and thinking about that has been developed further in this program as well. And besides, I guess the other thing I might mention is, besides it being focused entirely on public media, through the use of the cohorts and the peer groups, really being able to try to get to peer groups that of stations of similar circumstances, so that the sharing and the cross learning is even stronger. From a program point of view, we'll be sharing watching, make sure any cross learning across any cohort or any peer group is shared, but particularly for that group, which you get to know and really become a peer support group in a very practical sort of way. So it builds on the learning, I would say, of the table stakes program, and adds some elements that we've been thinking for a long time really need to be added for public media.
That's so great. And Quentin, I also received a private message question that brings up another thing that's different between those two programs. And that question was, how much does this program cost? I know it was kind of addressed at the beginning, but we had some people join us late. So let's celebrate.
Well, that's an easy answer. It's free.
It's free. So right. CPB is funding this program. Again, the goal is to really scale it, to give more station leaders the opportunity to help them with their digital transformation. And because we are investing in that is one of the reasons why we're looking for station leaders to also be, sign that commitment letter and be equally as committed to it. But the real hope is that we can scale this and get these 75 leaders in and touch as many folks, cast as wide a net and touch as many folks as possible, who are at varying degrees and different levels of digital transformation, and really help affect more change and bring along sort of systemically.
That's so great. All right, Virginia brought up a really good question. She said, regarding institutional commitment, will the station's direct supervisor be enough, or must the president's office or even the university regents sign off?
I'm not going to be too emphatic about that. What I would just say is, I think that the direct supervisor of the GM is fine. It's really just that acknowledgement that just says, I understand that the GM is going to be committed to this program. This is an important priority for this station, and this is where they're going to be allocating, their stations, some of their station's strategic focus and time. We just want them. We've seen in the past, particularly through the DCA program, it's really important when the boards understand how this is a priority for you as a leader and what it means, because it really does. It's a top-down effect. It really does impact your entire station, and it really does sort of escalate the importance of digital. And sometimes stations boards and their regents and don't necessarily understand that. So it's really their recognition that you're making this a priority because it's truly important to you in terms of serving your mission to your local audiences and your local communities, and they're supportive of that.
So is it safe to say that for someone with a community licensee, that they would just be able to have the board chair's support, and that would be enough?
Yeah, that's enough. And we just ask for one person to just sign it, and you would just say, hey, just so that you're aware. And it's good, again, what we've heard, it's good to keep your board involved and just up to date on what you're doing and what those changes are and what the impact is, so they can understand how it's really driving tangible value and return for you and your organization.
For sure. Virginia brings up an interesting point. She would like to know if we could put a dollar value on the training that each of these stations will be receiving. I mean, I can say like from Pointer's point of view, we have so many people pursuing DEI right now and digital transformation programs, and they're really high dollar programs. But Beth, you could probably speak to this.
Yeah, I mean, so we did not publicize the grant amount. I will tell you it's in the 7-figure range, what we're investing in this program for up to 75 station leaders. I mean, the dollar value is significant. What I think also an important question to ask is, what's the ROI for you as a station? What will you get out of it? And again, that's where it really comes down to how this program is designed in those 2 phases that Quentin talked about. You know, the first phase, that immersion program, is really sort of the design and how you get rooted in new practices, new processes, new ways of working. And then the second half, the 6 months, is how you actually execute that tactically in your digital area. So it doesn't necessarily need to be content creation. It could be email marketing. And what that really means in terms of really driving tangible metrics like increased audience growth, increased engagement, higher membership, increased donations. So these things have tangible ROIs in terms of the outcomes, in terms of how you're driving that value. So what I would say is, per station, it's a significant amount, but I think what's more important is how that translates into actual tangible outcomes and results for you as a station in terms of your audience growth, your more engaged and loyal audiences, and what those means in terms of increased membership and donation and revenue.
I love it. Thank you, Beth. Steve brings up another great point here. We're kind of pivoting now to talk about the team makeup. So how many people should participate on the teams, and who's your ideal members of that team to really be successful?
Very relevant question, because the team and the team composition is a big factor in terms of success in the program. The design is for the team to be 4 to 6 members, including the GM or the CEO. Think about the team composition on 2 different dimensions. One is certainly cross-functional, because almost any digital challenge you're going to take on to be effective across the organization, think across the functions. So not just content producers. Think about marketing and development, maybe technology, depending upon how you're organized. The other dimension is, for want of a better term, I'll say hierarchy. Think of this as an opportunity to really create some opportunities for emerging talent in your organization. So it's not a team of yourself and your top 4 functional direct reports. Skip a level or 2, look for individuals in your organization who are already digitally oriented, already doing the things that you need to be known to have done, and you may feel have leadership potential, because it could be a really important experience for them in the organization. And it just adds a different dynamic to the team, as you might imagine. I was trying to think if there was another aspect of it. I will say, which is one of the reasons why, built into this program, and it's been emphasized in the CEO participation. Because, we've had experience with teams in the past where the head of content might have been on the team, but, the CEO wasn't. Particularly in smaller organizations, and it'll slow you down. And also, I think it's just a great group experience as a team in terms of focusing on a challenge. Hopefully that provides some guidance. And it will mention on the application, we do ask for you to specify who your team would be to get a sense for it, but you're not going to be held to that. I mean, once we get into the program, and if there's a reason to change it or change it up, but it gives us an indication of how you would approach the team formation.
Speaking of teams and cohorts, this is Jackie from CPB. I just want to jump in here and say hello to everyone that I know: Virginia, Chad, thank you, Emily and Steve. And I invited Chris Kirschner to join this webinar. He represents the Viewhouse music stations. And Quentin, you mentioned earlier in the presentation that table stakes was more geared towards news. And so this particular program includes music. So since he's going to talk to his music membership, can you tell us about the music station inclusion?
Well, that will be a new area for the program to have a large number, hopefully, of music stations in the program. And And I think, the same concepts apply, particularly the funnel concepts for a music station in terms of what is the digital content you're going to provide. How do you create awareness of it? How do you build the top of the funnel? And in some ways, I think, particularly in recent history, well, I shouldn't say just recent history, but I think if you think about the relationship that music stations have always had with the listeners, I think there's been a higher degree of engagement in many ways and many opportunities to engage them, around what's going on in the community music-wise, around events, and then thinking about how to build upon that in a digital way and thinking locally, what are the digital platforms we need to be on to be really tied in to whatever particular genre of music the station is doing. So I actually think that there is, this is pure hypothesis, there may be greater audience engagement potential in music stations and perhaps less competition within the local market. So we're really looking forward to that. Hopefully, Jackie, that sort of get to.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
very
you did.
helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, we
questions?
did. I know Randy had a question for us, and I mean,
Oh,
obviously, this is a brand new program. We're really inviting people in to the ground floor of something exciting and new. But he still asks, do we have an example of an outcome for a station who's maybe participated in something like this?
Yeah, and Emily, you might include, if you've got them handy, some of the links to some of the pointer articles. And Sarah, I noticed that you were on the call. A couple of them will be from KCOR and also from PCC. I think, across stations, I would take a funnel view of where they've seen significant improvements. Some have really increased basically their monthly in market reach, and on the order of 25 to 50%, in some cases more. Others have focused more on audience not engagement, but loyalty, frequency of visits, a harder number to move. But again, the same sort of 25, 50% increases. Others have focused, particularly KPCC, on what we kind of refer to as digitally attributable revenue. In other words, digital membership, digital contributions that can be directly linked to a digital call for action, basically developing digital awareness campaigns. I'd say those are still nascent. They're still in the thousands of dollars, not in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's building the experience and the capabilities and the learning, and moving more towards event-driven fundraising, as in your event, your schedule, to behavior-driven. Someone visits your site 3 times in the last 5 days, pretty good indication of some interest, messaging them at that point or trying to get their email. A lot of this also focuses on, depending on the challenge, again, very much focuses on your ability to build as large and robust of email list as possible, because that obviously gives you the opportunity for direct marketing.
Perfect. Thank you, Quentin. Does anyone else want to unmute and ask us any questions here as we kind of wrap up?
Quick question. Do you foresee like a second phase of this? Like if a station is not quite ready to do this now, do you see like, well, 6 months we might, have another round of this?
Yeah, so right now, the way this program is designed, it's there's 4 cohorts that have these staggered starts. So if you're not quite ready now, there is the ability for you to apply now, but you could designate, I want to start next July or even next October. The 4th cohort starts in October.
Okay.
So that's a part of that logic of why we designed it this way was resources. We wanted it to be a rich, robust program, and we agree. If Pointer felt that they couldn't really do that in justice by launching up, 80 stations at the same time and then running through. So we staggered it. And so, that gives you the opportunity to say, I want to do this, but not quite ready now. I'd want to do a later start time. And then you just designate that on when you apply. And you can even just write in, there's an open-ended space for you to write and just say, I only want to be considered for cohort 3 or cohort 4. I can't be. Yeah. So
okay.
Hopefully that
Thank
helps.
you. Thanks,
Yeah, no
Beth.
worries. Any other, we have 7 minutes. We can give you the time back. I do want to make sure we address any questions. Look, we feel this is a really valuable program with, I think Quentin did a great job really outlining a lot of benefits. And we think that, you know, as I sort of shared with you, audiences, and you guys know this, particularly radio, and even TV, but they are moving towards digital, and that's where you're going to be able to capture a larger swath of people, your existing audience, and also your new targeted audiences that you want to reach as you grow into the future. So you want to meet them, you know, where they're at. And this program really helps you kind of fast forward your efforts and really sort of optimize and maximize what you're doing today with tools and processes that, you know, you can embrace and you can basically champion throughout your entire organization to get everybody else on board. So I really encourage you, if you can, it's 9 months out of your life, but if not now, then when, is what I've been saying. Really take advantage of it. We'd love to have as many of you as possible in this program and really help kind of meet you where you're at, so you can better, you know, create tighter bonds with your community and serve your mission. So with that being said, I'll turn it back to, I guess, Virginia. We will send you all the presentation. She's got the webinar, the video, and then I would just encourage you, we have 1 more week, so please do apply. Don't hesitate, don't procrastinate, jump on it. And please do email me if there's any other questions, and I'll be happy to address them.
Beth and Quentin and Emily, thank you so much for sharing this information with our university affiliates. And I hope we get a robust group gathered to send in those applications. And I will get the information posted on our website and links to all the forms. So in addition to having what you've put out, we'll also, you know, really hit them over, hit everybody over the head.
That's okay. We have there's a page on the CPB website. I'll give you the link, Virginia, and it's got the presentation again. It has the application form. I think it has the MOU. It's got all these different elements that you can take a look at on one web page. So we can send that to you as well. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see some applications soon. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Virginia.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.